All right. Ready? All right. Well, welcome everybody to Living Water Christian Church. We're so glad you're here today. What a crazy week, you know. Hit almost 80 and then have like a dust storm or some kind of weird smoke storm. We were doing Bill's service, his sister-in-law's funeral service in about 50-mile-an-hour winds Friday afternoon. So that was a crazy experience. But we're glad you're here. We're going to be worshiping. Let's stand together. And Sam Gallegos is going to be leading us in worship today. And let's just enter God's presence.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from, oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life, oh, he is my song. You are good. Good, oh, you are good, good, oh, you are good, good, oh, you are good, you're good, oh, let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves, oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days, oh, he is my song. You are good, good, oh, you are good, good, oh, you are good, good, oh, you are good, you're good, oh, you're never gonna let me down. 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 You are good, you're good, oh. way make, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Way make, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. 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 You are here, moving in our midst. We worship you. We worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. Way make, miracle work, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. We sing, way make, miracle work, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. That is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, come and heal every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here. You are here, turning lives around, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. I worship you. Even when I don't see that you're working, even when I don't feel that you're working, you never stop working, never stop working. Even when I don't see that you're working, even when I don't feel that you're working, you never stop working, never stop working. Even when I don't see that you're working, even when I don't feel that you're working, never stop working, never stop working. You never stop working, never stop working, never stop. And we say, Waymaker, miracle work, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't see that you're working, even when I don't feel that you're working, you never stop working. My eyes are fixed on you, God. Lift up my eyes to those hills from whence comes my help. My help comes from you. My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. So turn your eyes and look on me, God. Father, we come to you this morning, just as we are. Set our hearts and eyes on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Where the meaning of our life, the meaning of our pain, the meaning of our joy is wrapped up and hidden in you. Fix our eyes on things above, not on earthly things. We ask today that you would transform us. Transform us by the revelation of who you are. Seen and unseen God. Visible and invisible one. Our hearts are yours. Even when I don't see that you're working, even when I don't feel that you're working, you never stop working. Even when I don't see that you're working, even when I don't feel that you're working, never stop working. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. You unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemy, till all my fears are gone. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name. I've been born again into your family. Your blood flows through my veins. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears were drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears were drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God.
And thank you. Good to worship with you today. We're going to take a few moments and just greet one another. So maybe just turn around. You want to move around the room a little bit, pass the peace, and say hello to somebody.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, come on, that was weak. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I'll wait while you get your seats taken here. My name's Vicki Kearns. I'm a member of the hospitality team here. If we have any children that are here today for Sunday school, meet Susan at the door and she'll take you all upstairs. Right now, Sundays, and they started last Sunday with Greg Guy, and it's through April 13th. He'll be leading a Bible study on Ecclesiastes. This group will meet Sundays after service in the lobby, and it looked like a really good attendance last week. So, there's a new support group starting up. It's to foster connection and emotional support for people who have encountered religious trauma and deconstruction, and where doubts, questions, and disbelief are a valuable part of the spiritual journey. The only agenda is to support one another through deep listening, vulnerability, empathy, and meditation. This 6-week group will be facilitated by Paige Sears and Fred Heron, who both have encountered religious trauma for different reasons. If this sounds like something in which you're interested, contact either Paige or Fred for further details. If you, let's see, is there anything else up here? Pretty much the same thing. Next Bunko night is April the 8th. I'll get to go to this next one. If you have any prayer requests or praises or have contacts, info you'd like to share, feel free to fill out a card found in the seat backs. in the racks on the tables or by going to our Church Center app, which is the easiest way to do it. If you'd like to respond to worship by giving, you can do so by visiting our website or app to give online. You can also give in person during worship. Offering envelopes are available in the seat backs or on the tables. Gifts and completed cards can be placed in the offering baskets on the communion tables or during communion time, or there's a box on the table in the hallway. Now, if you all would please join me for the Lord's Prayer. We do it a little bit different than the standard, so. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen. Pastor Fred.
All right. Well, I am going to introduce to you a speaker. We're in a guest speaker. We're in a series called The Secret Struggles of Skepticism. And the book that I've recommended for this series is called God After Deconstruction. It's written by a couple of friends of mine, Tom Ward and Tripp Fuller. And it tackles all of the big reasons why over 1 million people a year leave the church. So this is a series on the top 7 reasons for you to leave the church. How's that? Anyway, and honestly, we're really just raising questions, and we're talking about doubt questions, the struggle of belief, disbelief. And so we're not trying to just give you solid answers, but we're trying to actually identify with these struggles and bring them up, raise them, and then poke around at ways that we make our way through them. And so it's a spiritual journey that I think we've all been on, and we have, if you've been around long enough, you've probably had some questions and doubts along the way, right? Yes, so Jonathan is a pastor, has been a pastor, isn't currently pastoring a church. He's from a Nazarene background, and I met Jonathan through Tom Ward, through a common friend of ours. Jonathan's been friends with Tom quite a bit longer. He has written a couple of books that I love. For you theological nerds, this is his dissertation for his doctorate called Theology of Consent. And it dives into mimetic theory from the philosopher Rene Girard. So if you're a theological nerd, egghead, or you just, want to sleep really good at night. No, sorry, John. Anyway. But this book, Indigo, The Color of Grief, is why I had Jonathan come and share today, because we're dealing with the issue of pointless pain today, pointless pain. And Jonathan's gone through some deep, deep pain, and he wrote this book, Indigo, The Color of Grief. I've written most all of the classic works on grief. I would rank this one right up there with the best of them. I wept my way through this book, and I would highly recommend it if you know any friends who have gone through deep darkness, deep pain, deep grief, questions, doubts, disbelief. I highly recommend this book, all right? And this is its author. And by the way, his wife is here, Jonna Foster. Let's welcome Jonna. Good to see you, Jonna. And Jonathan, come on up.
All right. Thanks, buddy. All right, thank you so much. Man, it's really nice to be here. Thanks, Fred, for the invitation and for plugging the books. I appreciate that. I'd love for you to pick up a copy. First of all, because I think there's some meaningful stuff in there. And secondly, because I really don't want to take them with me when I leave. I just like to leave here empty-handed. If we could make that happen, that'd be awesome. All right. I don't think I'm going to preach today. I don't think I'm going to teach theology. I think I'm going to share a bit with you kind of about what I've been through and what I am going through and how I'm getting through it. How's that sound? All right, good. When I was about 10 years old, my parents took me to a concert, which is an unusual statement if you know anything about my family. It's the only time my parents would have ever taken me to a concert. Don't get carried away. It wasn't a secular thing or anything like that crazy. It was a concert by a guy by the name of Andre Crouch. Anybody here old enough or gospel nerdy enough to remember Andre Crouch and the Disciples? So we Went over the river from our little town in Iowa to the big city of Omaha, Nebraska. And on a Sunday afternoon, we went to Andre Crouch and the Disciples. And previous to that concert, I don't know that I'd ever experienced anything quite like that. Previous to that concert, the entirety of my musical soundtrack you could fit in just a little small box, about the size of a Nazarene hymnal, by the way. That's the box size. And when I heard Andre Crouch, stuff just blew open. Rhythms and tones and sounds and chords I had never heard before. And really, in a lot of ways, though I didn't know it at the time, it really kind of changed my life in many artistic ways, particularly. So there's a bunch of songs that Andre Crouch had that were really popular in the kind of culture I grew up in, but one of them was Jesus is the Answer. Do y'all know that song? Well, we're going to sing it together, and those of you who know it, I know there's a couple people that at least know it here. Sing it with me. Jesus is the answer for a world today. Above him there's no other. Jesus is the way. And it just repeats. Jesus is the answer for a world today. Above him there's no other. Jesus is the way. Hey, that was pretty nice, Fred. Good job. Jesus is the answer. It's kind of a perfect song for like middle America Christian church world that I grew up in. I mean, musically it's perfect. It's very simple. It gets to the point musically, although there's a lot of room for some nice gospel stuff, and Andre Crouch did really well with that. Lyrically, it's like the perfect song too, because it encapsulates everything down into this nice little micro phrase that, you know, Christian church world loves to use. And the phrase here, of course, is Jesus is the answer. And everything about Christian church world, at least where I grew up, was all about just making sure whatever else was going on, we got everybody to this little phrase, a bit formulaic, but it worked pretty well. Jesus is the answer. Like, no matter what question you asked, Jesus is the answer, right? I wonder how I should vote. Jesus is the answer. I'm wondering about sexuality. Jesus, please, don't even think about it. Just go Jesus. Whatever that means. On and on. And we just love to force everything into Jesus as long as we get there. Reminds me of the guy who was teaching the little second graders. They're sitting in a semicircle. They're little red and yellow plastic chairs, half there, half not there. And as she's teaching the lesson, at one point she says, "What's brown and furry, lives in a tree and eats acorns?" And one little guy raises his hand. He's just defeated already. And he says, "I'm pretty sure it's a squirrel, but I'm going to say Jesus." Correct. That's the answer. So everything just becomes about Jesus. And I grew up in that. And for the most part, it was good. Like sometimes we'll say it kind of worked until it kind of didn't work. There was a lot of good stuff about it. What I started to kind of realize, though, as I got older, though I didn't have the language for it, I was really vibing with the Jesus part. I wasn't vibing so much with the answer part. It was like the answer was used in a way almost like code. Like, okay, now we're at the end of the story. Don't ask any more questions. There's no gray here. It's all black and white binary. Jesus, end of story, right? Resolution. And I didn't have the language for all of that, but I was feeling all of that inside. Like, I really like Jesus. I just not really sure I understand why we're using it in this particular way. It became this end-all, be-all answer that I didn't exactly get all the time. So I was kind of working with that. I liked it because I liked the people I grew up with. I liked my parents. It was all pretty positive. Meanwhile, in other parts of my life, I was kind of experimenting with other kind of, I would say, maybe philosophical approaches. Like, for example, with music, I started to recognize that I really liked music that had tension in it and had odd chords, Sam, and sevenths and ninths, and dare I even say 11ths. That's how, oh, no, that's way too much, just kind of this interesting stuff that didn't always end on like this major key. I found that to be really beautiful. I've found like the depth of beauty in other interesting places too. Like, for example, when I was out hiking, coming down from a mountaintop, and I would look at the valley and the rivers, and I started noticing that nature never really creates in straight angles. Everything's obtuse, and all these weird patterns can emerge. The sky color can be all different kinds of colors. It's not just day and night. It's all different hues and timbres and colors. And I started seeing the depth of beauty in other places too, like, for example, how about just with people? Particularly people who were different than me. Now, who was I? Well, I was straight, white, American, male, from the Midwest, Protestant-ish, evangelical-ish. So anybody who kind of didn't fit in those boxes, as I got to know them, as I got older, I was really amazed at how cool some of these people were and how interesting some of these people were. It's true. It should be laughed at. Like, I never knew that. I remember particularly when I was pastoring out in Phoenix and I started to connect with a few people who were gay. And I remember one day a guy left my office and I thought to myself, I think that guy is more put together than most of my straight friends. And then my next thought was, I better make sure I don't tell anybody that, publicly. Which, of course, later I did, and, then that's for a whole nother story. But so anyhow, what I'm trying to say is I was given this formulaic answer, Jesus is the answer. And it kind of worked, but there was some stuff about it that didn't always work. Meanwhile, with music and with hiking and with people, I was seeing nuance and gray areas and different colors. And I started to try to bring some of that stuff over into my theology, into church world. I started to try to talk about like the tension in music. Basically, church world was like, that's cool, but we already got these chords here that we usually use. And have you ever heard of Jesus is the Answer? That's a good song. Can we do that, And I tried to talk about like colors. And basically, church world was like, bless their hearts. That's what my mom would say sometimes when she was getting ready to like be maybe semi-disrespectful or something. She'd always say, bless your hearts, like that negates everything you're about to say, right? So I just slipped into that. That's kind of funny. Church world, bless their hearts, they would be like, we like the colors, but I don't know if you've read the Bible. In the beginning, God made the sun, called it day, and the moon called it night. It's black and white. Just, read the Bible. And of course, when I started talking about people, that were different, it didn't go all that well. And so I was kind of wrestling with all that. I didn't have the language for all that, but I was wrestling with all those kinds of things and the questions and the tensions and the color of all of that. It was fascinating to me. Now, for the most part, it was cool. I was going with it. I was a pastor. I loved, for the most part, what I did. And I don't have a lot to complain about. But I was kind of personally trying to figure out what all of this meant and what Jesus meant and what an answer meant in the midst of so many questions in my life. So I'm kind of thankful for all of that because it loosened me up a little bit. If I hadn't had some of this other stuff going on, I probably could have easily become like this card-carrying, live-in-the-box kind of evangelical whatever. But I didn't have that. And I was working through some of these things, and it loosened me up to the degree that I was somewhat prepared, although I don't think anyone can be fully prepared. I was somewhat prepared for the biggest question of my life, which happened New Year's Day, 2015. We just celebrated the 10-year, it doesn't feel right to call it an anniversary, but the 10-year mark of our daughter, our oldest child, who was killed in a car wreck, about 4:30 in the middle of an ice storm in southeast Kansas. New Year's Day, 2015. Whew. So that thing served to be a question that I really couldn't figure out what the answer was exactly, and it really invited me to step into and wrestle with it. It was shocking to lose a kid like that. Like, this wasn't my car keys. This wasn't a remote control. This wasn't even losing like a famous painting or something priceless. Like, she was literally priceless. And as I say in the book Indigo, in the span of a heartbeat, her heart stopped beating, and we were forever a fraction of what we were and who we were. Fractions, they don't work like wholes, W-H-O-L-E, wholes. With a fraction, something is missing. Someone is missing. In our case, the someone who was missing was not easily overlooked. Like, she wasn't a missable person. She was loud and gregarious and intense and funny and moody. And she kind of, like, we never signed up for this, but in our family, it turned out that she kind of directed the emotion of the whole family. Like, if her brothers were upset, she could always help them to become joyful in some way. Turn it around, boys had no chance. Like, she was just in control. For good or for bad, that's the way it was. I write in the book, like, she was more thermostat than thermometer. She was more weather than weather vane. And we were all caught up in the weather of who she was. Whew. And then she was gone, just like that. And it was shocking. It was shocking to the system. It was shocking physiologically. It was shocking psychologically, and if I had more time, I could talk about those, but it was also shocking theologically. Like, it just changed everything about the way I approached life and God and who I was and what pastoring was and what church is and what all this means. And like, previous to her death, as I mentioned, I was already wrestling with tension, and I was trying to figure out how to make it kind of work. But I'd always been able to, at some point, finesse it back into, give or take a little bit, into this Jesus is the answer kind of encapsulated thing. But this thing was so big, I couldn't pare it down. I couldn't get it down into a manageable anything. It was just such a heavy thing. Like, everything was out of tune. And really, honestly, 10 years later, it still kind of is. I'm a wreck. I'm a walking mess, basically, so. And so I started trying to think through what all that meant and who Jesus was in the middle of it. And it's really fascinating. So I want to say something like, initially, church world was great with us. And I don't mean just any one specific church. I mean church world in general, although our little specific church here in Lenexa at the time was great. But initially, church world is great in a crisis. They do that really well. What we don't do really well is sticking with people for a long time in crisis. Like, I shouldn't even say we like, but we feel like a sense of purpose when something's going through something for a little bit. But after a while, it's kind of like, Jonathan, you kind of need to pull it together here and figure out how everything works again back in this little Jesus is the answer formulaic thing, because we all know that's really the truth. But for me, the questions kind of never stopped. And more than that, it was something about Jesus himself became a question for me. Everything about his life was so interesting and different, and it stirred things up inside of me. I mean, just think about the way he died. One of the gospel writers says that his last breath is, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" It could be, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" I mean, what do you do with that? It's so interesting. And the more I played with all that, if that's the right way to say it, it kind of became traction for me in a way that the formulaic Jesus is the answer, like, that was slick and slippery, and I couldn't catch traction. But the question of who Jesus was and the way that he lived his life, that became traction. Like, the tread of who I was able to connect with that and make some movement. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of the way I've been getting through this, like the traction of who Jesus was, because I couldn't deny Jesus is a troubling person. There's a lot of stuff he says that challenges a lot of things. I mean, the birth, just think about the way he showed up. The narrative surrounding that is puzzling. And the way he lived his life was challenging, and the way he loved was totalizing, and the way he taught was for sure compelling, and the way he healed was scandalizing. The way he turned anger and violence into grace and forgiveness, that was revolutionizing. The way he died was disturbing, and the way he was resurrected, well, that's surprising. And all those things had a measure of an answer. But what I started thinking was, you know what? Your best answers really always wind up leading you to bigger and more interesting questions. Your best answers in life don't close stuff down, tie it up in a neat bow. Your best answers in life always wind up leading you to, it's like an open-ended kind of a thing. And I like the open end. I don't do so well. I don't know if you've figured this out yet. I don't do so well in the closed part. I don't think it's honest. I don't think there's intellectual integrity there. And Jesus is nothing if not like an intellectual person of integrity. And so I started thinking more like, oh, Jesus is the question, not the answer. Maybe I'm a part of the answer that Jesus is asking. So then I started singing, come on, join me. Jesus is the question for a world today. Above him there's no other. Above him there's no other. Jesus is the way. And just repeats. Jesus is the question for the world today. Above him there's no other. Jesus is the way. That's nice. That's nice. Yeah, all this stuff just led me to continue to orient and reorient my life around Jesus. And I thought, man, there's nothing about Jesus that I don't find compelling. That's funny when I use a double negative like that. Whenever I say double negative, I always think of my son, my oldest son. I picked him up from high school one day. I think he was a junior, so he's probably about 17. He jumped in the car and he said, hashtag straight up boy talk, Dad. Which, that'll catch your attention. He jumped in the car, he said, hashtag straight up boy talk, Dad. I said, yeah, and he said, there ain't nothing that didn't look good about so-and-so today. He was talking about this girl that he was fixing to date. There ain't nothing about her that didn't look good today. So, I don't know why I just thought of that. There ain't nothing about Jesus that I didn't find compelling. It was so interesting to me. It was an answer, but the answer was like, had all these questions a part of it. It was helping me heal, but it wasn't like my wounds just went away. I don't even know that they've turned into scars. I don't know if they ever will even turn into scars. They're open wounds. It's just, Jesus is right there in the middle of it. It was like something that helped me with resolution, but it wasn't the end of the story, because the story is still going. I'm still alive. And maybe even after I die, by faith, I suspect that there's something still going on. So like, it's not an end final thing. It's this dynamic, open-ended movement thing, and all of that was super interesting. And I think what I want to say is, what I found was that it wasn't a way out of my grief, it was a way through my grief. It wasn't a way out, it was a way through. So if I'm going to recap, I was handed this formulaic thing, Jesus is the answer. By well-intentioned people, by the way. There's a lot of good people part of that whole church process. For me, the Jesus part worked. The answer part didn't work so much. But the more I wrestled with Jesus and I realized the question of who Jesus was, like that became something of the answer for me. I hope you see what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say a propositional approach is great. It'll work for a while. But what you really need is a relational approach. Propositions are great masters. They're terrible servants. So use the bullet points and the propositions and the beliefs and the creeds and the prayers. Those serve a purpose. But what you really need is a relationship. And I mean that, yes, with Jesus, but also with one another. We need a relationship with the divine, but with one another, because the truth is, and if I had more time, I'd double click on this and talk for a bit. The truth is, frankly, I don't know where the one ends and the other begins, the divine and the other. What did Mother Teresa say? When you look in the face of someone else, you have looked upon the face of God. So yeah, go for the answers. That's fine. But what you really need is a relationship. What I say in Indigo is solidarity is greater than solutions. Solidarity is greater than solutions. It's that solidarity that you'll find a way through whatever it is, the pointless pain that you are going through and that I'm going through. Well, here's the good news. And most people don't know this. Most Americanized Christianity doesn't know this. You already got solidarity. You don't got to do nothing. Double negative. You don't got to do nothing. Hashtag straight up preacher talk. You don't have to accept anything except the reality that you've already been accepted. That's what Paul Tillich said. Grace isn't the thing that reconnects you to God. Grace is the thing that reminds you you ain't never been disconnected in the first place. Double negative. I said I wasn't going to preach this morning. Look, I just started preaching. Grace isn't the thing to reconnect you with God. Grace is the thing to remind you that you've never been disconnected in the first place. Some of you feel like you need to do something to get back into God's good graces. You feel like maybe you need to sacrifice something to get back into God's good graces. So I drove up here to North Kansas City this morning to remind you, no, you don't. That's just some old, worn out news that the religious machine has been perpetrating for thousands of years. You don't have to do anything. You're already one with the divine. God already loves you. The system means well, but the system is dumb. It's full of good people, so I got to be compassionate and gracious. It's full of people like me mixed up, some good, some bad, full of all kinds of colors and stuff, obtuse angles and stuff. But the system is dumb, and it's wrong. You don't have to do anything. You are already in a relationship of oneness with the divine and with God. The depth of beauty is not found in some formulaic, cookie-cutter answer that the religious system keeps trying to put onto us. And the reason they do this, well, the reason the system does it is because the system knows that if it can define the answers for you, then it can demand certain things from you, and then it gets more powerful. And it can validate its existence. The system doesn't want you to have power. And am I talking about religious and politics and economics? And yeah, I'm talking about all that stuff now, because it all bleeds into everything. But the depth of beauty isn't found in formulaic cookie-cutter answers. The depth of beauty is found in the patience of tension and suspension, the obtuse angles of mercy, the different sunrise and sunset colors of grace, and the uncontrolling, upside-down power of love. That's the depth of beauty. That's a really good answer, because it leads to so many questions. All right, I got a couple minutes, then I'll shut it down. I think I'll close down with this story. I write about it a little bit in Indigo. It's a moment I'll never forget, though it's silly to say that because the events surrounding I brought my Kleenex up here just in case I fell apart, because you never know, Fred. And there's still a chance. I still could. I started to say it's something I'll never forget, but that's silly to say because, Well, first of all, I don't know how any of you in your 50s, grandparent, like by the time you get to be my age, there's a lot of things that you just, a lot of really interesting moments in your life that you might not ever forget. Of course, in a few more years, it might not matter. I'll forget them anyhow. So. All right, to the point of what I'm trying to say. The night our daughter died, I'll never forget, we were back home here in Olathe, and I was walking up the steps, and my oldest son was in front of me. And I remember down below, the lights were on and people were talking, and upstairs it was dark. So as I rethink about that, the metaphorical image of that is not lost on me. We're in the shadows. We're halfway between light and dark. And And he turned around, he said, Dad, he put his hands out. He said, I can't do this. This is too hard. And if you're a parent, like it's one thing to lose your child, and then it's another thing to grieve, to watch one of the other kids lose their best friend. See, I told you I might need these. We got multiple things to grieve. Whew. So we're standing there on the steps, and I'm like, my heart is an anvil, and we talked for a moment, and then I said, I don't know, it's probably one of the best 3 or 4, 6 or 7 things I've ever said in my life. And I said, Bud, I know it hurts a lot. But maybe the reason there's so much pain here is because there's been so much love. Maybe the reason there's so much pain is because there's been so much love. I don't know if it helped him, which is basically all of us parents relate to that. I don't know if anything I said helped him, but it helped me. And you would not believe how many times I've returned to that same basic idea. I mean, probably thousands of times. The reason there's so much pain is because there's so much love. And there's something in that for us all to be thankful for, I think is what I'm trying to say. Like a lot of people don't get to experience that kind of pain because they never got to experience that kind of love. That's something for which we can all be grateful for. So I want to try to tweak that a little bit with this question and answer thing and say, maybe the reason there are still so many questions happening in our world, and there are so many questions erupting in our world, in your life, in my life personally, and in our lives together. Maybe the reason there's so many questions is because it's in the context of some really deep answer. And the answer, again, involves not just God coming to fix it from some place outside of time and space to end it all in some resolute final thing, but rather the answer becomes the way I respond to this question. Both me personally and communally and nationally and geopolitically, we were in what some scholars are calling a polycrisis. We were in a polycrisis time. There's no getting out of it. What Baldwin say, not everything you face can be changed, but nothing will be changed unless you face it. So we have to stop complaining and get over it and realize we are in a moment that might last for the rest of our lives. The answer is, how will we respond to the question of who Jesus was? I want to say something like that. Maybe the reason there's so many questions is because the answer really is so good. And it has something to do with love and something to do with Jesus. So good luck with all that. thank you for letting me be here. God bless you.
So, Jonathan, what color were your daughter's eyes?
Well, they were blue for sure.
Indigo, the color of grief. Get this, give it to your friends, give it to anybody that's gone through grief. I promise you, you'll be blessed. You know, I was in my darkest year, feeling like God didn't exist, honestly, full of questions. You know, my mom and dad and sisters and brother-in-laws and nephews and nieces, they love me so beautifully because I had melted down. And, you know, it was interesting. I had gay friends who loved me beautifully, better than many of my church friends. And I had atheist and agnostic friends who loved me like Jesus I thought would have loved me, you know. And so I asked Sam to play this song, and I ran it by Jonathan. It's by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. You might know him from the theme song of Peaky Blinders, Red Right Hand. But this song is a love song. It's called Into My Arms. It's written by an atheist or agnostic who is in a loving relationship with somebody who believes in God and in Jesus. And I've listened to this song for my own self 100 times at least. And so I've asked Sam to share this song in response to this message. Thank you, Jonathan, so much.
I don't believe in an interventionist God. But I know, darling, that you do. But if I did, I would kneel down and ask him not to intervene when it came to you, not to touch a hair of your head, leave you as you are. If he felt he had to direct you, then to direct you into my arms, into my arms, so low, into my arms, oh Lord, into my arms, oh Lord, into my arms. And I don't believe in the existence of angels. Looking at you, I wonder if that's true. But if I did, I would summon them together and ask them to watch over you. Well, each to burn a candle for you, to make bright and clear your path, and to walk like Christ in grace and love and guide you into my arms, into my arms, oh Lord, into my arms, oh Lord, into my arms, oh Lord, into my arms. But I believe in love, and I know that you do too. and I believe in some kind of path. We can walk down, me and you. So keep the candles burning, make a journey bright and pure. Then she'll keep returning, always and forevermore. Into your arms, oh Lord, and into my arms, oh Lord, into my arms, oh Lord, into my arms.
Thank you. Beautiful. Oh, man, I can just put that on replay, and it just does something to my heart. So we're going to share communion together here at Living Water. We end in communion. You know, it's a time when we think about the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, and I just think about the loving heart of God broken wide open in the cross, and God's solidarity with every point of pain that we can ever experience in this life. We're not alone. God is in total solidarity with you at every point of your life. He knows your name. God knows your name. God loves you. You're God's beloved. And you're not separate. God's grace and love encompass every moment of our life. And I think those beauties and the highs and those horrible lows, but we can hold that all in love. And I think that's what God calls us. And so as we move to this table, we remember that life and that death and that resurrection. If you'd like to join us, you can just sit and meditate. But if you'd like to join us, I'm going to invite you to come forward. Let's stand together, and I'll ask the communion servers to come on up. And when you come forward, you'll come to the center aisle, go to the server in front of your section, and then circle back to your seat. So come to the center, come to the front, go to the server to your left or right, and then circle back to your seat. You can tear the bread, dip it in the cup, and take the communion right here. There's also some sealed communion that you can use if you'd prefer that, and there's also a gluten-free wafer if you prefer that. And so we remember when Jesus was gathered with his disciples the night before he was crucified. He gave thanks. He broke the bread. He said, "This is my body broken for you, broken open in love for you." We're to take and eat. In the same way, Jesus took the cup of wine after supper and said, "This cup is the new covenant between God and you, sealed by the shedding of my blood. Do this in remembrance of me as often as you drink it." So I invite you to come forward to receive communion.
I'm calling on the God of Jacob, whose love endures through generations. I know you will keep your covenant, God. I'm calling on the God of Moses, the one who opened up the ocean. I need you now to do the same thing for me. I'm calling on the God of Mary, whose favor rests upon the lowly. I know with you all things are possible, God. I'm calling on the God of David, a shepherd boy, courageous. I may not face Goliath, but I've got my own giants. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. Oh, I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. On your faithfulness. You heard your children then, you hear your children now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You answered prayers back then, and you will answer now. You are the same God.
All right, let's stand again together. Thank you for being here today. And wow, some great questions out there, aren't there? And there's great love. So we come together in that love. And let's close with our favorite verse around here, at least my favorite verse, 1 John 4:16. God is love. Those who live in love live in God, and God lives in them. It's my favorite verse these days. So God bless you. Go in peace and share that love everywhere you go.